Ooh, bow chicka bow wow. They boned. Unfortunately, we know damn well that this is going to be a short-lived romance because I'm almost positive she's going to leave this area at some point, probably at the end, and pass on so he can move on from his false reality. So it's probably because I recently finished Expedition 33, and don't worry if you're still playing or haven't played the game. I'm not going to go into specifics, but that game deals with the idea of grief and moving on and not being able to move on. It's probably a big influence on why I'm thinking the way I am. And if you look at the end of this latest Kowloon episode, it pretty much makes it look like, hey, they slept together, they're getting down and dirty, they love each other, it's all fine. Like, this is their Kowloon Generic Romance. But we still got 5 episodes left. This is a full story. I firmly believe this show's going to end rather than Kudo forcing himself to move on. I think he would willfully live here forever if it was completely up to him. He essentially lost his fiance, who was supposed to be his wife. We're learning a bit more about that. Supposedly it was like, okay, she overdosed on pills, but it would have been impossible to overdose on pills. She would have needed like 1,000 of them or 10,000 of them. So there's definitely some mystery going on there, and we have to explore that. But the idea of him accepting this isn't his original girl, right? Like, this is a separate person. But it's weird because if you have a spouse or a partner and they die, like, yes, people can move on, but it gets weird when that person looks identical, sounds identical to the original. It becomes wish fulfillment. And if you've played a game like Expedition 33, you can see the danger of staying willfully ignorant and living in bliss forever and unable to process grief. Because it really feels like Kudo is the character who's unable to accept that she's dead. Now, technically, he did not just immediately jump into her arms. Like, it does feel like a slow burn, him accepting, but there's always going to be an element of him using her as a replacement and a scapegoat for not fully being able to process his feelings. And it's not to say that, our girl isn't real to some degree, because she feels it. She feels like her own person. But I feel like what they're going to build into, whether or not it's the very last episode, the very last scene, whatever, I feel like she's going to, on her own, walk out of the city. Now, they could go the route that the whole thing gets shut down. It does feel like we're building into that bigger, like, okay, the reason Kowloon was destroyed a second time was a cover-up. So very possible exposing that cover-up could cause the whole thing to crumble, and them having to have an emotional goodbye that way. Personally, I'm hoping that it will be of her own choice, though. I think that'd be a very powerful ending of her, like, letting go of his hand, saying, I have to do this. Like, as much as we might love each other, you're unable to move on with your life. You need to be in reality. You can't just continue to play wish fulfillment here. Her walking off into the sunset and disappearing. I think that would be a very poetic and bittersweet ending, because it's beautiful, but it's also hell. It's conflicting because, like, if he lived here forever, would it be the worst thing ever? It's hard to say. Because I'm half expecting, like, we're gonna get a time skip 10 or 15 years from now, and we're gonna see a man just, like, sitting in rubble with a faceless grin, just like a emotionless stare. Like, it doesn't feel right. It feels like they're forcing themselves into hell, and, the idea that this whole Kowloon situation feels like it's a dollhouse for Kudo to play with in order to craft a reality that is based on nostalgia. The same foods he eats day in and day out, the same city that he used to love, the same woman that he used to cherish, right? Like, that feels like what we're doing. And while they've definitely done a good job at keeping our girl feel like her own person, and she's often said, I'm not her, I am my own person, it doesn't change the fact that she is a fake. She is a generic. That if she was to leave this city, she would cease to exist. This place is so fake that when our girl leaves and tries to pay for, like, the subway fare or whatever, she has no money because any money earned in that city doesn't exist outside. And it's such an interesting concept because we know they interact with things. Like, when she touches her, like, she exists. When they lay in a bed, the bed exists, but it only exists if you're inside and for whatever reason connect with the terror or whatever. So the idea that it does feel like it could be paradise, but at the same time, there's so much uncertainty and it feels so unnatural. And I think that's why I come back to the kind of Expedition 33 thing, where it feels like this is another story that deals with grief and unable to move on energy. And these types of stories, they get very divided reactions. Some people saying there's nothing wrong with that, and other people saying it's unnatural and you need to process grief. And I think if they go the route of its character choosing to pass on, whether or not he says, I need to leave, I can't do this anymore, or she says, I need you to move on, we will probably see very divided reactions on the ending. If the ending is this thing getting shut down and they have a tearful goodbye, I think mostly people will be like, oh, it's sad, but, at least they got to say goodbye. I'm not sure which ending I would prefer at this point, but it definitely has my mind racing. And in general, this episode did good. Like, there's a couple of things I would have changed personally. Like, as an example, when she's on the computer talking to Buddy in the door next to her, it's a pretty boring directing, like, narratively engaging, but just looking at a computer screen, not that entertaining. They could have done some few visual flares, like maybe had the screen be a little more transparent and then seeing maybe the reflection, just give it a little more spice visually. But in terms of actual content, absolutely exceptional. There's a lot to explore, and I've been saying this since the beginning. It feels like there's no way they can touch upon everything they want to. They keep introducing new conspiracies. I mean, Buddy was talking with his dad, and his dad's like, yes, that is what I named you. And I'm like, is this the fake who doesn't know of the original? I don't know what they're trying to imply half the time. We got murder cover-ups. We got suicides that couldn't have been suicides. It's just there's so much uncertainty. And this is without a doubt one of the strongest shows that we will watch this year. This is a show that is in the running for Anime of the Year. Now, granted, if you know my opinions of Orb, you know Orb is going to win it for me. But I'm not going to deny the fact that I'm still going to put it in the list to give the illusion of there's actually contenders for Anime of the Year, damn it. Similar to Game of the Year categories. Damn good. It breaks my heart. I die a little inside every single week when I see people barely talking about this masterpiece, but it is what it is. I'm sure I wasn't there, but I'm sure when Serial Experiments Lane first came out, like 3 people talked about that one, and we saw over time it got promoted, so maybe something similar will happen here. I don't know. Great shit. I expect a very, very heartbreaking ending one way or another, but yeah, this show in its way of dealing with grief, it hits that sweet spot, and honestly, it's wild that I've just recently played a game that did so, and now I'm watching an anime that's doing so. It's a good time to be Brandon, is what I'm saying. Your thoughts, theories if you got any, leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell. And of course, we do got the full live reactions over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll just give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Dragon Mom, Ryan Kahalili, Jessica L. Compton, Ishta, and we also have Eternally Lost. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and don't get trapped in your delusions. Have a good one.